Oh, I didn't notice you were here. It's nice to have you here. You can take a seat, grab a snack, and even take notes, because this is gonna be a deep dive on how to be happy before you win, aka how to be happy in general. Because if you think about it, actually, most of our life, we could even say 99% of our lives is spent climbing the mountain of our goals, and only 1% is actually getting to the summit of the mountain. And the sad part is that most people can only be happy here. And that's so sad. These people are wasting 99% of their lives. They wait to be happy. But climbing the mountain is quite literally your life. So you gotta learn how to be happy before you actually get to the summit. So ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Why do you do what you do? Basically, there are two types of reasons. Internal reasons and external reasons. Let's get a little bit deeper on that. We can define with a very cool word internal goals like Autotelic. This word comes from two Greek words, autos, which means itself, and telos, which means end. So basically, an autotelic activity is an activity whose goal resides inside the action itself, meaning the reward for doing the action itself is the action itself. You're not waiting for an external reward. The action is the reward of the action. This quite literally the goal that every human should strive to. Yet most people and most activities are actually heterotelic. And this one comes from the word heteros, which means another, different. So an heterotelic activity is an activity whose goal is external to the action itself. So let's make an example. For example, if we consider the same activity, it can be autotelic or heterotelic, depending on how you do it, with which goals you do the action. For example, let's take into account writing. Writing can be an autotelic activity, which means it has an internal goal. If you just do it for the sheer passion of doing it, you do it for the sake of writing. You're not waiting for an external reward. And even if there is a reward to this action, it's not the reason why you do it. And writing can also be a heterotelic activity if you only do it for external rewards, which might be money, it might be prestige. In general, anything that is not inside the action itself. So you might ask, why am I drawing this distinction? Well, because if you look around, you will notice that all the people who are actually happy are extremely autotelic. They care a lot more about loving the action itself than expecting a reward for their actions. So they basically only focus on climbing the mountain. That's clever if you think about it. They don't waste their lives because they know 99% of their lives is just climbing the mountain. Why not start loving it? It makes sense, right? If instead you only do it for the final moment because you want to reach the summit and you want the fame, you want the picture on the summit of Mount Everest, that's not the point. Well, you will be happy there. Every human being will be happy on the summit of the mountain, meaning when they achieve their goal. But to only be happy on top of the mountain is so silly. So let's fix that. Now let's be real. Every action actually has internal and external goal in itself, meaning in the same action you can find both internal, intrinsic, and external or extrinsic reasons to do the action. I'm gonna make an example with myself. For example, I record videos like the one you're watching right now, and I could define this action as autotelic or as heterotelic. So if I ask myself, what is my motivation for doing this action? Because if the motivation is internal, I can define this autotelic. And if the motivation is external, meaning I expect an external reward, I can say that the action is heterotelic. Well, to be fair, I can say that recording videos is 100% autotelic, because I still unconsciously expect external rewards. But I would say that at least 80% of recording videos, at least for myself, is autotelic. Why? Because in general, the main reason why I record videos is just because I love talking to the camera. I love sharing my perspective. Actually, I've not always loved talking to the camera, but what I love is sharing my perspective, which is the action itself of recording. What I'm doing right now is just sharing my perspective, not expecting a reward that is external to the action. But like I told you, I have to be honest with you. We all also unconsciously expect external rewards from our actions. And this could have been even working out, this could have been writing, this could have been literally anything you can imagine. Now, what you should strive to is to make most of your actions mostly autotelic. And I'm gonna tell you a trick to do this. So let's just accept the fact that you can't have only autotelic actions, and that inside every action you will have both autotelic and heterotelic reasons to do it. For example, an action that is mostly autotelic might be 90% autotelic, meaning 90% of the reasons why you do it are internal to the action itself, and only 10% is heterotelic. Okay? For some other actions, it might be the opposite, meaning you do it 90% because you expect external rewards, and 10% because you actually enjoy it. Now, since you can't actually achieve an action that is 100% autotelic, because as humans we just love external rewards, I'm going to tell you a little trick to just trick your own mind into believing that, you know, the rewards are not actually that important. This will sound so silly, but trust me, this works. Rewards are only a bonus. And if you define your rewards, your external rewards, like a bonus, you stop depending on them. So if we are honest, we all love rewards. We can't kill our love for external rewards like money, like sex, like social prestige, fame. These kind of things are just within us. You can be a spiritual master and still feel the need for these kind of rewards. But if you just say that you still love them, they are so good to receive, you just love rewards, but you say that they are a bonus, you will do the action, which is climbing the mountain itself. And then once you get to the summit, you love it, but it's a bonus. Meaning, even if you don't arrive to the summit of the mountain, that's cool, because 99% of your time was spent well, because you enjoyed doing the activity itself. And getting to the summit is just something that even increases this baseline level of fulfillment. Can you think how win-win this is? Because most people just feel like their rewards is 100% of the activity. Can you think that there are people who work their whole life just for the tiny amount of happiness? I'm just saying, why don't you try to consider rewards like a bonus of your work? Because if you love your work, paradoxically, you will also be more efficient, because what you love is easier to do. And if you are more efficient, you will also be more likely to get to the summit of the mountain. That's crazy, right? You will both achieve more and be more fulfilled if you just love this huge amount of your life, which is the process of achieving something. That's something that people can realize, because most people think that if you love the process, you actually can't achieve the final goal. But that's not how it works. You can see this in top performers. They love the process and then they also achieve the final goal. You can do both. You should do both. This is the wisest strategy ever. This is what my whole brand is about. This is what I teach in my one-on-one coaching program. I just help people fall in love with that so that they achieve more here. That's win-win. Everyone wins. Why wouldn't you like that? So if you also love this type of videos where I just explain stuff on a whiteboard with some crazy ideas like that, just subscribe to the channel. It truly helps. Thank you. I know that you won't believe me, but we haven't even scratched the surface of why being autotelic and choosing autotelic activities is so important. Even if you closed the video right now, you would be ahead than 95% of people in society, because most people just do things expecting an external reward. But only if you know that, if you even know the meaning of autotelic, you're literally ahead than 95% of people. But what we're going to see now is how you turn a concept, which is being autotelic, into a whole life philosophy. And this life philosophy is the whole reason why I've started this channel, why I've started this brand, why I've started my offer. And it is flow state. You might have heard of this state. It's a state where you just become the action you're doing. You are completely immersed. Your ego disappears. So you don't think about yourself. You're not worrying about yourself, about your problems, about society. You just don't care. You care about the action because you become the action. Your awareness and the action itself merge together. And there's so much more to flow state. But in this video, we're just going to focus on that, because this is the bridge. I didn't invent this word. The author, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the author of the book Flow, a masterpiece, I highly recommend you to read it, coined this term, autotelic. Why? Because to enter flow state, you need autotelic motivation. Because let's just think about it. Let's say you want to enter flow state when riding or when running. So you go out running. And how do you enter flow state? Do you think you enter flow by thinking about external rewards, like thinking about how you will do in the race you will run, or thinking about how stronger you are than other runners? Or do you get into flow by just caring about the action itself without expecting anything external from the action? Obviously, you need internal motivation, because if you just look outside of the action, you can't be in flow. Flow is literally when all the reasons why you're doing what you're doing is in the action itself. You're doing it for the sake of doing it. You are running because you love the feeling of your heart pumping blood inside your body. You love the feeling of moving fast. You're not expecting to become the top one runner in the world. This is not the point. You will think about that, about external rewards, once you have finished running. Then you can think about those stuff if you are an ambitious person. I'm not saying that you can't be ambitious. I am ambitious too. But I think about this stuff only when I finished doing something. And even then, it doesn't actually matter so much because I just remember how good it felt to not even think about myself and to just think about the action. Or not even thinking, because you weren't thinking. You were the action itself. You disappeared in the process. So basically, now you know why it's so important to have autotelic activities, to live an autotelic lifestyle. But now we're gonna see how you can actually do it. We have already briefly touched on that by defining rewards like a bonus of your activities. But now let's get a little bit deeper. And I could talk for hours about being autotelic and why it matters. So if you want more videos on that, just comment down below and I'll make them. I'm happy to do it. So we are gonna see 4 ways to live a more autotelic life. The first one is, like we were seeing before, you can actually live a life that is 100% autotelic. This is the first point, because some people think that this is possible. From my experience, and I've been into flow state and this kind of stuff for years, it's nearly impossible for most people. There are people who actually achieve this kind of life, but it's very rare, especially if you live in a Western society where we're just used to doing stuff for external rewards. So there's no problem in living a life that is 95%, 90%, even 80% autotelic at least. So if you can't usually achieve a life that is 100% autotelic, what you can do is make sure that you always have various activities in your life that are mainly autotelic. For example, let's say that you're actually working on something, your career is something that is not at all autotelic. You actually don't enjoy doing it. So you actually have 3 options here. Either you try to turn your career into something that is autotelic. You can try to do this, but it's a lot hard if it's truly something you hate. I think we can reframe literally anything into an autotelic activity just by switching our awareness and our goals for the activity. But sometimes it's easier to just change our career. But this is not always possible. I know you might need that job because of the money, because of other reasons, because you're not ready to do something else. So if you can do the first or the second, you can just add. Usually I'm not a fan of adding stuff to your life, because the more you add, the more confusion you usually feel. But if your career is not autotelic but it's heterotelic, you will need something that is autotelic, so you will add autotelic projects. I'll call them projects, but it can be literally anything. So if your career is heterotelic and not autotelic, meaning you are doing it because you only want the money or the prestige or the fame, you can start a side hustle, but a side hustle that doesn't only make you money, but also gives you fulfillment, because that's the point. Because if you had a side hustle that is heterotelic too, and it's not autotelic, you're not solving the problem. The problem is that you don't enjoy doing what you do. So if you add, this is the rule, if you add, make sure it is autotelic. So you can start a side hustle, or you can start another hobby that is uniquely autotelic, because you can balance your life. If, let's say, you work 40 hours a week and these are not autotelic but are heterotelic, but if the rest of your life is just you enjoying living itself, and you will do 60 hours, 80 hours of things you love, which might be cooking, which might be passing time with family or with friends, these are usually activities that you should love doing for the sake of doing them. Usually, at least I hope, because if your career is not autotelic, make sure at least the rest of your life is autotelic. Now, obviously, the ideal is to make most of your life autotelic. But this is a hard process. I've been into this for years, and I even work with people, teaching them how to do this. I know this takes time, so don't rush this. You don't need to rush this. You can go gradually. And this was only the first way. Now let's see other ways. Now let's see the other 3 ways to achieve an autotelic life. The next one is awareness. And this is only a matter of how you approach the action itself. So let's say that right now your life is not very autotelic. It's mostly heterotelic. So you do most of your actions because you expect something external from them. To change this, you will need awareness. And you will need awareness not just in any random moment of your day, but especially when you are actually trying to enter a flow state, when you're trying to immerse yourself into something, because you want to achieve this autotelic kind of motivation, meaning an internal kind of motivation. So if you enter a flow session without awareness, you won't be able to live in the present moment. You won't actually be able to enter flow state in the first place, because flow, as we said, is an eternal present that actually can last for hours, but you are only focused on the present, not on future rewards, and neither on past failures. It's only present. And present, if you follow my channel, you already know this, because we talk about this for hours. I don't know if you even can tolerate me talking about this anymore, but to really live in the present, you need awareness. And awareness is just a mental way of being towards things. You are just focusing on your experience, on your sensorial experience. So if you want to achieve autotelic motivation, you gotta tap into your awareness. So this will mean very basic things. If you want to enter a flow state when running, for example, you will try to not use music, because music will bring you memories and emotions that are fine, but they are not emotions of the flow state, because the flow state doesn't have the usual emotions of our life. It's just complete absorption. And emotions bring you to the future or the past, even if they are happy ones. This is what people don't realize. You don't need to feel happy during the flow, because flow is much more than happiness. Happiness is after you finish the flow, because then you realize how cool it was. But during the flow, you don't actually feel very positive emotions, and you don't feel negative emotions. You don't feel many emotions, because you feel them after. Talking about running, you will try to have note music. You will try to notice your heart pumping blood in your body. You will try to look your muscles. You will try to focus on your muscles, on your legs, on your feet touching the ground, how the ground changes depending on where you run. Just listening to the nature around you. And this is all awareness. And awareness brings you to the present. And the present brings you into flow. And flow is all about autotelic motivation. So you understand the pattern here. Now this one is so good. It will literally change your life if you apply this in your life. You have to change from asking yourself, what do I get out of this? Because this is the question that most people ask themselves before doing anything. And it seems cool. Even for myself, in a channel where I also talk about productivity, leverage, achieving, this is cool. You have to also notice what you will get out of something. But if you want fulfillment, if you want autotelic motivation, if you want to feel perpetually motivated to do stuff, you gotta start asking more. Who do I become by doing this? So up until now in this video we have seen how most people are only happy when they achieve the final result, and superior people, if we want to call them superior, are very fulfilled during the whole process and also when they achieve. But there's something that we haven't discussed up until now. The reason why you have to do stuff is not actually because you will achieve stuff, it's because your identity will change in the process. And most people think that their identity will change when they achieve the thing, so that when you actually get something out of the thing. But it's not that way that it works. Identity change requires sacrifice, and sacrifice is just achieved on the road. You can just, if you go to the summit of Mount Everest with an helicopter, would you say that your identity would change? Hell no! There are people who died on the way to the summit. How do you dare to say that you changed because you've been on the summit of the mountain without actually climbing it? You have to climb it. You have to earn the identity change. So please start doing this. Start asking yourself, who do I become by doing this? By doing this, not by achieving this. In my way, I just want to change the world with this very switch. I'm trying to spread it here on YouTube. You can spread it in your life too. You can be ambitious and want to achieve stuff while also loving the process. You can. And the best people out there are literally doing that. That's why they're more successful and happier than you at the same time. And you can't understand why. This is why. I guess if you don't understand these, go watch something else. Don't watch my channel, because this is the point. If you are subscribed to the channel, you have to believe in these. You can achieve while enjoying. This is a good life. Otherwise, it can be a good life. Now let's see the final way, the fourth way in which you can achieve autotelic motivation. So I'm not going to actually tell you immediately. I will first tell you a study that proves not only this tip, but this whole video. What we have discussed today is science, not just random stuff that I'm explaining to you, right? So they did this experiment that will blow your mind. So they had these kids who already loved drawing. So they had, I'll test you, what kind of motivation did they have? Autotelic or heterotelic? Obviously autotelic, because they loved drawing itself. They didn't have external rewards for drawing. Okay? They didn't get something out of drawing. They just loved drawing. So then they made 3 groups. So in the first group, they told them that they would have received a reward for drawing. So this group is the expected reward group, meaning they knew they would receive a reward for drawing. Then there was an unexpected reward group. In this group, they received a reward, but they didn't know it. So they still drew with autotelic motivation. And then they received a reward that they didn't expect. So this was pretty similar to the no reward group, where they just drew and didn't receive a reward. So who do you think actually kept drawing for more years? Because this is what they then measured. Who do you think will continue drawing for more years? Which of these 3 groups? It's quite obvious, right? It's the ones with the autotelic motivation. So the second and the third group. The first group, what's crazy is this: they loved drawing before the reward, and giving them a reward actually made them stop drawing, because once you remove the reward, then you can't do it anymore, because now you've got used to receiving a reward for doing the action, and now your motivation is heterotelic, so you expect something else out of the action. So you can literally ruin someone who already has autotelic motivations, like these kiddos, if you just give them rewards. So what do you think will be the fourth way to achieve autotelic motivation? Don't reward yourself. So if you just saw this little advice here, you would think that I'm an idiot who just doesn't enjoy life. But if you've understood the whole concept of the video, you will know that this is true. And you will also notice this in your life. Because once you start doing things only because you have an external reward, you lose the autotelic drive, that inner drive that no one can take away from you. I think you can understand this. And the point is, you can have rewards, but they should be unexpected. They should be a bonus. That's why I've told you that you should consider your rewards a bonus. That's it. I didn't lie to you. This study proves it. Okay? So you can have as many rewards as you like, as long as they are not expected and you don't do the action because of those. You gotta build a life where you love doing anything you're doing, and then rewards might come, but they shouldn't steal you of this internal drive, of this inner drive that is being autotelic. So thank you for staying till the end with me, and if you want more from me, you can check out my X profile for more psychology insights and ways to make your life more autotelic and to enter flow state way more easily. Or you can subscribe to my free newsletter, Flow Wolf. Both these links are down below. And if you want personalized help to do literally this, to make your life a life where you both achieve and enjoy, because most gurus online just teach you how to achieve or how to enjoy, but what I try to do is combine those in the best ways I know and I've experienced in my own life. And if you just are interested in that, you can comment down below in the comments the word flow, and I'll send you more details on that. So thank you for watching, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one.